Ancient civilizations have always fascinated historians and archaeologists. Civilizations like Greece, Rome, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and even India have helped shape the modern world. But they all didn't just rise to power from nowhere. They had their technology and their secrets. So get ready as we dig in to uncover 10 bizarre secrets behind ancient civilizations' rise to power. 10. Ancient Indians practiced plastic surgery. I bet y'all didn't know this. Unlike the Greeks and Romans, many ancient Indian warriors didn't wear protective helmets, which left them vulnerable to losing body parts like ears and noses in battle. To address these injuries, Hindu doctors developed advanced surgical techniques. One such procedure was rhinoplasty, where a flap of skin from the forehead was used to create a new nose. Tubes were inserted to form nostrils, and this technique was successful as early as 500 BC. Another method involved using Bengali ants as surgical staples to close wounds without further damaging organs. 9. The Greeks and Romans practiced gun control. You may never believe it, but in ancient Greek cities, there was a strict form of weapons control. Despite their warlike nature, weapons were not allowed in public spaces. The Greeks believed that laws should rule, not weapons, to maintain equality in society. Carrying weapons in public was seen as a threat to civil order. Even lawmakers were expected to abide by these rules, as shown by the story of Charondas, who took his own life after violating the ban on carrying weapons in public. 8. Emperor Nero instituted fire codes and fire-fighting brigades in Rome. Nero, the Roman emperor, is often remembered wrongly for starting a great fire in Rome and for being a cruel ruler. However, he didn't start the fire, and he did some positive things that are often forgotten. After the fire in AD 64, he came back to Rome from his villa and helped the people affected by the fire. But what Nero did next was more important. He made new rules to protect Rome from fires in the future. Before Nero, Rome was like a big pile of wood waiting to catch fire. The streets were narrow and the buildings were made of wood, so fires spread quickly. After the Great Fire, Nero ordered the city to be rebuilt with wider streets and buildings made of stone and brick. He also set limits on how tall buildings could be built. Additionally, he redirected old aqueducts to provide water for the people and firefighting. 7. Ancient civilizations were more connected than we think. In ancient times, people from different civilizations traveled and traded more than we might think. For example, the Phoenicians likely sailed around Africa long before Vasco da Gama. Carthaginians explored as far north as Greenland and as far south as Sierra Leone, spreading Mediterranean culture. Alexander the Great spread Greek culture to places like Pakistan and India. After his death, his generals divided his empire, leading to centuries of cultural exchange. The Romans also traveled widely, with troops from places like Mauritania fighting in Britain and Romania. Romans even had trading outposts in India and may have traveled along the Nile to the Sudan-Uganda border. 6. Rome wasn't the sole inventor of republican government. When we think of ancient Rome, we think of a republic. And when we think of ancient Greece, we think of democracy. But what about ancient India? Most of them don't learn much about their government. Surprisingly, ancient India had its share of small republics. Around the same time Rome was establishing its famous republic, several cities and towns in India were also adopting republican ideals. These included ideas like representation and collective decision-making. The first records of this type of government in India date back to between 600 and 480 BC. Despite their small size, some Indian republics survived encounters with Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC and later conquest attempts by the Guptas. 5. Roman sexuality wasn't progressive or accepting of homosexuality. Roman society had strict views on sexuality, which were different from modern ideas. For Romans, the important thing was the role you played in sex, not the gender of your partner. 4. Egyptians took medicine very seriously. Ancient Egyptians were a very spiritual people, and they believed that gods, demons, and spirits caused diseases. Egyptian doctors believed that spirits blocked channels in the body and that it affected the way the body worked. To unblock these channels, they used a combination of prayer and natural or non-spiritual remedies. Archaeologists found several written medical records containing over 700 remedies and magical formulas and incantations aimed at repelling demons that cause diseases. 3. Barbarians were simply people who didn't speak Greek. In ancient Greece, the term barbarian referred to anyone who couldn't speak Greek. The Greeks thought foreign languages sounded like bar, so they called foreigners barbaroi. This didn't mean they thought these people were crude or uncivilized. They recognized the greatness of other civilizations like the Egyptians and Persians, even though they still called them barbarians. 2. The Romans didn't invent crucifixion. Crucifixion, often associated with ancient Rome, actually originated in Persia around 500 BC and spread to other regions like India, Egypt, and Carthage. The Carthaginians used it extensively, and Rome likely adopted the practice from them. While Carthage sometimes crucified its own generals, Rome usually reserved this punishment for non-citizens, like the rebel Spartacus and his followers. The practice was abolished in Rome in AD 438. The fall of Rome in AD 476, when the city was sacked by the Vandals, wasn't as catastrophic as often thought. By then, Constantinople had become more important than Rome, and Ravenna had replaced Rome as the Western Empire's capital. 1. The fall of Rome didn't end. The Roman domination supposedly ended in AD 476, when Rome was sacked by the Vandals, but it wasn't as big a deal as people think. Constantinople had become more important than Rome long before. Ravenna had also surpassed Rome as the Western Empire's capital. When the Gothic general Odoacer took over, he didn't want much change. Life for most Romans went on as usual. The barbarians who took over, like the Goths and Germans, had already been part of the Roman Empire as allies and soldiers. They fought alongside the Romans against the Huns in 451. The real downfall of the Roman Empire wasn't foreign invasion, but a series of civil wars. The Roman army fought against itself, breaking the Western Empire into many smaller kingdoms. The Eastern Roman Empire, based in Constantinople, lasted for another 1,000 years. There you have it. Thanks for watching. Kindly like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more.